Thank you for joining. We will be starting in just 2 minutes. We'll be starting in 2 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are going to be covering Azure Sentinel. Today, I'm lucky enough to have a couple of real smart people with me. I have Jason Milgram, who's our Vice President of Platform Architecture and Engineering. I also have, say hello, Jason.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, there he is. Good. I'm glad he's here. And then I also have Phil Hambrick, who's one of our top security specialists that works here at Champion. Say hello, Phil.
Hey there, everyone. Let's have a good webinar today.
Yeah, we absolutely will. So with that, first of all, I just want to do a couple housekeeping things. On your Go to My Webinar panel, you'll see an area that says questions. Phil is going to be monitoring those questions all webinar long. So we want this to be as interactive as humanly possible. So if you have any questions for Jason, Phil, or myself, we'll be more than happy to help you out and answer the questions either on air, or if we can't, we will answer them through a text message back or contact you after the webinar. Sometimes we can't get to all the questions that are asked. With that, we're going to get this thing off and rolling. And what we usually do is we do have like 3 or 4 poll questions here. In fact, today we have 5 poll questions just to get an idea of the audience that we have here, make sure that our information that we're giving you is topical and to the point and not, just giving you, the marketing of this. So the first question I'm going to launch here is, do you have a SIM today? Are you using a SIM in your environment, whether it's in the cloud or on premise? So with that, we're getting some response. I got about 25% of you that responded so far. It's pretty even. Oh, there it goes. It's 65-35 yes, just so you have an idea of what we're doing, and that's with almost 60% of you responding. I'm just going to give it a couple more seconds here. So the final tally was 58% of you have a SIM, 42% of you don't have a SIM currently in your environment. The second question really has to do a lot around cloud. Since we're talking about Azure and Azure Sentinel, are you running a hybrid environment today? So with that, if you could answer that question for me. Wow, it's like 90% yes, 10% no, with about 50% of you answering so far. So it looks like it's going to be a predominant yes on this, and we're at 88%. Just a couple more seconds here. So we ended up at 89% of you have a hybrid environment, and 11% of you are still running either 100% in the cloud or running all on premise. Last one, third question, I usually do 3, but there's more today, is what is your approximate monthly spend in cloud. So as you can see, it can be anywhere from zero, all the way up to over $20,000. So just pick the area that you guys are in. It looks like the 1,000 to 5,000 and the 5,000 to 20,000 and now the 20,000 plus is up there too. So it looks like it's a pretty spread across those three. There really isn't anybody below $1,000. A couple of you here and there, but you can see it's predominantly $1,000 and above. Thanks very much for answering that question. What environment are you looking to manage? And this is going to ask you around the different clouds and premise locations are out there. You can select all the ones that are pertinent to you. So if you have more than one cloud, or you're doing cloud and premise, please check both. This gives us a good idea. And just like history has told us in the past, it's mainly AWS and Azure from a cloud. Obviously, 80% of you or more are on premise, so that's where it looks like. Google's got about 3%, and other clouds like IBM and Oracle and all the other people that are out there are about 8%. Thank you very much for answering that. The last question we have for you, and then we really start giving you information instead of you giving us information, is, are you looking to roll out a SIM in a certain time frame? You have no time frame to do this, less than 12 months, more than 12 months, just an idea from a time framing standpoint. Most of you, 60% of you right now, don't have a time frame, and most of the other ones are looking 12 months or less. So, and that's with almost 60% of you answering. All right, great. Now this is going to help Jason and Phil and myself make sure that we come up with the right information for you. About 60% of you, just so you know, said no time frame. 35% of you said less than 12 months. So with that, that really helps us go through this. So let's talk about the agenda that we have today. We're going to talk about what is Azure Sentinel. There's a lot of information out there. We're going to try to boil it down for you and give you the real workings. How does Azure Sentinel work? How do you collect your data inside of Azure Sentinel? The different dashboard options that you have inside Sentinel. Customizing your analytics that you can receive from there. Probably the most important piece in talking to Jason and Phil is the automation and orchestration that you're going to get out of Sentinel. Then Jason's going to do a live demo. Now, I will tell you that this product is in preview. So not all the functionality works at this point. There are some things we can't do just because it's not there yet. It should be there during GA. Is that right, Jason? I mean, all the functionality that they advertise should be available at general availability, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so just so we know. So let's get into the meat and potatoes here. So what is Azure Sentinel? And as you can see, it's a cloud native SIM and SOAR. SOAR being an orchestration and automated response. And it delivers intelligent security analytics, threat intelligence across the enterprise. So we're not just talking about in the cloud, and it is a single solution for alerting and detection and proactive hunting. So with your experience, Jason, in running Sentinel, what do you think the strong points are when you're working with Sentinel?
Well, I think one of the strong points is that it's really easy to get it set up and going. And that's because you spin up the Azure Sentinel resource in your account, and it actually sits on top of Azure Log Analytics workspace. You connect your data sources, you configure your detections and automated responses, and you're done. And it's as easy as that. Now, I'm kind of joking when I'm saying it's as easy as that, but compared to traditional SIM solutions, it is very easy to set up. You'll spend more time, I think, configuring your detections and automated responses.
Okay, because I'll tell you, I've been in infrastructure my whole career, over 35 years, and I've deployed servers and set up networks and done things like firewalls and basic security. But it seems like with the cloud now, even more than what it was with VMware when I was in the data center, it seems like security has become an integral part of really managing your environment as basically an enterprise administrator. Is that it seems like that's more important today than it's ever been. Is that the way you see it, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, security's always been uh, critical, but in today's modern digital world, it's more important than ever. And when we talk about security, I mean, security it's a big word too. So there's preventative solutions and there's detect and respond, and it's always not just one solution. But I mean, Azure Sentinel, it's a detect and respond solution, and yeah, that's as a strong point. There's no infrastructure to set up, no maintenance. Uh, and one of the other challenges, which I think we'll talk about, is once you have the SIM set up, then traditionally you get inundated with a high volume of alerts, and people refer to that as alert fatigue, and how to lessen that alert fatigue, and that's where Azure Sentinel comes in.
Well, I think ease of use, especially for a guy like me that doesn't really have the security background, that I do, like in storage or in, setting up VMs and things like that. I think ease of use is an absolute must for something that I would be able to at least take a shot at managing with my limited experience. So let's move
Right.
on. Go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say, and that's one of the promises of Azure that has been delivered. I mean, we have this web-based, clickable, configurable interface for spinning up first-class data centers around the world with the latest and greatest security, and the same holds true with Azure Sentinel, which we'll demo later.
Yeah, I know that you were telling me you're going to go through a lot of these things, and on this slide here, you can see that what they're going to do is really give you this bird's eye view of your environment and collecting data. And I know you're going to show them how to set that up in your demo. You're going to talk about undetected threats and minimizing those false positives that you were talking about just a minute ago, and then using the artificial intelligence to really sift through. I know a lot of times when I talk to people, sometimes you get too many alerts. Sometimes too much information is not a good thing because you don't know which ones to focus on. And I think that's where Sentinel and their artificial intelligence, I know you're going to talk about that, Jason, but the real big one is the ability to respond quickly in an orchestrated and automated fashion. And I know you're actually going to demo that for them. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll set up some simple automation, and we'll trigger it, and you'll see it's not hard to get it set up. And I mean, with the title here, how does Sentinel work, and with artificial intelligence and all these other areas, I mean, the good news is there's actually not. Microsoft does all the heavy lifting there, and I mean, it's also why I think they are ideal. They are ideally positioned to kind of introduce a native SIM solution, just because they run the largest cloud on the planet, and Azure is recently referred to as the world's computer. They run their own massive cybersecurity operations center. They're coming up with the machine learning, the artificial intelligence to help minimize the alert fatigue. I was reading a statistic just last week that Microsoft threat intelligence receives and processes more than 6.5 trillion signals per day. So based on Azure, based on their cybersecurity operations center, based on all this data that's coming in, I mean, they've had tremendous insights and knowledge gained over the years to, I think, really allow the Sentinel team at Microsoft to completely reimagine the SIM.
So they're almost, I mean, they're almost their own lab, if you think about it. I mean, just all the experience they get from managing, like you said, the world's computer. I love that line, by the way. But I mean, by them doing it, they have a lot of experience even before they kick off the product, right?
Right.
So let's talk about how they do it. What's the methodology behind this? And I don't think that this is patented by Microsoft. I think this is what most SIEMs use. But basically, they collect the data, they detect the threats that are out there, they investigate all the critical incidents, and this is where, you know, we try to minimize all those alerts that you get. And then hopefully you can automate and orchestrate the most common threats and be able to really get to them quickly and be able to handle them fast. And I think that's what, I mean, that's the message that Sentinel's trying to get across. So I don't know, is there anything you want to add to that, Jason?
Right. Yeah. Collect, detect, investigate, respond.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
I mean, that's the nice summary of it all.
Okay. So when they're out there talking about collecting data, and this is something that, you know, a guy like me that doesn't have the security background, what type of data are they really talking about that's coming from all these different security sources that are out there? And then they talk about the different types of protocols like REST and things like that. Can you just give me a quick 101 of, you know, all this data that these SIEMs are going to be collecting over time?
Sure. So with Sentinel, it's starting out with over 200 plus connectors. So we'll actually take a look at some of those. They have connectors for AWS and, you know, all the big web application firewall and next-gen firewall solutions out there. We'll take a look at that. And in addition to these pre-built connectors, it also supports syslog and common event formats. So that pretty much covers every other system. They're either using syslog or common event format that you can plug into.
So this isn't just Azure. You just mentioned AWS, and so this will go across public clouds as well as on-premise?
Yes, yeah, it's designed for not just Azure, it's on-prem, it's other public clouds. And the idea is they wanted to create, you know, one place for you to go to get, you know, the data, and it's not just for servers, it's users, apps, devices. You don't have to switch between solutions. Yeah, and I think the you know, the fact that AWS is supported is critical, because most large enterprise clients, or, you know, mid-sized enterprise clients, many are multi-clouded using both Azure and AWS.
And that's a smart move. I mean, it's, you know, one of the things you read about in all the magazines and talk to customers about is cloud lock-in. They don't want to get locked into a single cloud, and this actually gives them the ability to manage across as many clouds and as many data centers as that they're in. I also noticed that, you know, Office 365 is one of the sources that you can use for alerts and so on. So this isn't just the infrastructure or platform as a service play. This also goes across software as a service. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah, Office 365, and yeah, we'll see more examples of that in the demo. The one piece I'll try to remember to do is, you know, each connector comes with its own dashboard that was created by, you know, whomever the connector was for. So there's an Office 365 dashboard, there's a Palo Alto dashboard, there's an F5 dashboard, but you can also customize the dashboards for your own use. And, you know, the dashboards are really just it's a bird's eye view of the data, and, you know, from there, that's where we'll get into, you know, how to create the automation and how to create the alerts, because
Well,
the
you got to
dashboards
my
are great.
before I even got there, Jason, when talking about dashboards. So
I was reading your mind. It's almost as though I knew what the next slide was.
yeah, isn't that amazing? You know, there was no prep in this or anything. But you mentioned 200 are already out there. So you mean that there's actually like 200 dashboards out there already?
So again, it's in public preview, so not all the dashboards released. And there's a difference between the dashboards and connectors. And once I show it, I think it'll be more clear.
Okay, so I think they got an idea that, these dashboards are fully customizable, so you can actually put in there and look at only what's pertinent to you. So, and can you do that by the user inside a single enterprise?
Yes.
So that
Yeah,
makes it, you can give certain people the ability to see certain things and other people can see other things.
correct. In the access control, you can kind of manage access to the solution.
Okay, great. All right, let's talk about analytics, because this is obviously one of the big areas to help you manage these environments. Like you said, Microsoft gets how many trillions of alerts on a single day, and they're, unless they employed everybody in the US, they have to use analytics to be able to sift through all of these alerts. Am I correct?
Right. Yeah. With the machine learning, according to Microsoft, this is studies they've done both internally and with partners and clients that through the use of machine learning, which is an absolute must in today's environment, they've been able to reduce the a number of alerts by 93%.
Wow. Wow. So you're only looking at the things that are really important to you instead of having to sift through all of this clutter just to find that needle in the haystack.
Yeah, and you know what? They brought up an example just recently. I'm trying to pull it up.
All right. Well, we don't want to wait too
Yeah,
long. If you
no,
find it, let us know. But let's move on because I want to give you as much time to demo as humanly possible in here. So let's talk about the playbooks. I know you were mentioning that to me earlier about the playbooks that are already available for you to either customize or even add to. Am I correct?
right. So the playbooks are Azure Logic apps, and it's designed so you don't have to do coding. There's a graphical interface for building out workflows, and they have a lot of pre-built things in there. They're fairly easy to set up to do some quick integrations and integrate with a number of different solutions.
And this is what you're going to demo. This is one of the things you were telling me you're going to demo live inside there, right?
Yeah, we'll set up a workflow in a Logic app, and then we'll see how you connect it to then events, and you'll get a hands-on view of how easy that part is.
All right. Well, I know that I put this in here because this is kind of the workflow that you're going to be using, right? I mean, it gives you an idea of, if this happens, then do this and so on down the line. It almost to me looks like the application in Office 365 called Flow. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it seems like they've used the same interface, if you want to call it that. Is that pretty much it?
Absolutely. For anyone who's worked with Flow, Azure Logic Apps is very similar. You do get more capabilities in Logic Apps.
But it's as, I don't want to say as simple, but it's as intuitive as Flow is, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then I know I wanted to put up a chart here instead of everything words, but this is some of the interfaces that you can see on what's connected to what and what has, availability to others. I think you're going to show a lot of these maps that they give you, correct?
Yes. Yeah. On the investigation side, in the Sentinel resource, I don't have that up and running yet, but I've done the investigations through Security Center, which are very similar to this. In fact, for those who've been working in the Azure space, you'll see that, hey, this is a combination of a number of solutions that Microsoft has been maturing, over the years. Just like the analytics piece, they've built on top of the Microsoft Advanced Analytics and the Azure Threat Protection. So it's just constantly building on top of what's previously been done. So ultimately we get, relatively easy to use web-based, clickable, configurable solutions through the Azure portal. Very nice.
That brings up an interesting question. These people that have invested in EMS, do their alerts or their information get passed over here to Sentinel?
Yes, absolutely. You can tie in Azure Security Center, your Azure AD login risks, users at risk, your Microsoft threat detection. You'll see that in the connectors, and actually that brings up a good point, and I'll show this in the demo, where connectors are you're allowing a connection to an existing solution that has a lot of data, because that's one thing, you brought it up earlier about now that it's in the cloud, some different things to think about, and one is storage, because you don't want to get hit with huge storage costs. So connectors allow you to connect to existing data that's already in log analytics, like Azure AD data and Security Center data. And separate from that, separate from the connectors, you can then go to Azure resources and add them, have them send their log and metric data to the log analytics workspace that Azure Sentinel is using.
Oh, so you don't have to double dip in storage, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's trying to help you not double dip with data that's already been put into log analytics.
Oh, okay, that's great, because as we all know, that's a reoccurring cost in cloud, and this is a way to keep that cost as low as possible. In fact, I'm going to turn the screen over to you, Jason, here, and why don't you go ahead and start with your demo? So I'm about to pass it to you right now.
All right, and we're going to choose monitor 1, and
I can see it, so you're ready to go.
All right, so you can see the Azure portal, correct?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. All right, so this is the Azure portal for those of you who are not familiar with it. And if you're looking for Azure Sentinel, it will only appear in your left-hand vertical navigation if you've added it. So to find it, you can go to All Services. You can either scroll, type in one of the categories on the left, or you can just use the filter. And I've already added it. Notice it says Preview. And I'll go ahead and open it.
Now, is this a free trial right now, Jason, for people to try?
Yes, yeah, it's public preview, so it's not private preview, so anyone can go in and create the resource. Now, when you go in and create it, it's going to have you create a log analytics account. So keep in mind, Sentinel is built on top of log analytics. And we'll go and look at log analytics because that's where you can go to add additional Azure resources and have them share log and metric data. All right, so this is the overview page. Again, I don't have everything turned on, but let's just first jump to the dashboards. And notice you have installed and all. So far I've enabled 10 dashboards, and there are 20 that have not been installed yet. So I can look at all of them by clicking on all, and notice there's AWS right up there. You'll see other solutions. We have Cisco, F5, FortiGate, Juniper, Palo Alto, Symantec, and the list goes on. And you can select any one of these. So let's say I'm going to open up Azure Activities. Now keep in mind, dashboards are bird's eye views. There's, through querying and other tools, we can get much more detailed information. But I can go and look at, Azure Activities and get useful information. The whole idea of a chart or graph is to, let you understand a lot of information very quickly to summarize it. And I can jump to my other dashboards. Let's go to Azure AD sign-ons. This is one of the more colorful ones. And there's a lot of information once it finishes loading that I can see, sign-ins by application, device, location, trust types, sign-in errors.
And you can drill
failed
into any one
sign-ins.
of these, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah, eventually.
Oh, okay.
Again, but you can also download the information as well. And I'll just, so you have Office 365, you mentioned, right? So it's not just Azure and on-prem and AWS, but this ties into Office 365. This ties into the solutions that the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite uses. All the data can be connected and or shared with this environment.
Oh, it even breaks it down by application like SharePoint and OneDrive. So that's very nice.
Yeah. Now, earlier I'd mentioned that you can customize the dashboards. So you say, okay, yeah, this is nice, but I need to kind of create my own. So you just click on add new dashboards and you can, take these and, pull them onto the grid. And I'm going to put this one down here. And then I want, this here and, and build out your own dashboard. Because the whole idea is, if you focus on a certain area or you want to be able to switch between dashboards and you give it a name. So this is, my dashboard. So there is my dashboard. I didn't make it very interesting. I didn't put much there, but it's now in my list. I can switch to it.
Wow, I could even do that. I mean, that's not even very complicated.
Right. So threat intelligence and secure protocols, identity access. So let's. So a big question that here. Let's go back to here. That has come up, and once people go into dashboards, it's like, how do I get back to Azure Sentinel? So instead of going back to the left-hand vertical navigation, it's actually right here, this tile in the upper left-hand corner. You click that, and it takes you back to Azure Sentinel. Now, keep in mind, public preview, rough edges will be smoothed out, and of course, everything will be improved over time.
Yeah, how long did it take you to find that little shortcut?
Too long, because like some people, I want to kind of click and set stuff up without reading.
I know that's the same way I am, and then all of a sudden you bump into it by accident.
Right, but then I went back and started reading and
Oh,
started
you
really
read the owner's manual? I thought we didn't do that anymore.
only pieces, but yeah, all that's available on the Azure.com website. If you under products search for Azure Sentinel, you can get all access to all the official documentation there. All right, so these are the dashboards. We'll come back and look at hunting and notebooks a little bit, but let's go to data connectors because this is important. There are 24 connectors right now. I have 6 connected. This is where I can see the connector. Now, again, connectors are essentially giving permission for Azure Sentinel to read data from these solutions that already have existing logs. So I have it connected to Azure AD, Azure Security Center, and a few others. And to connect, like if I want to connect to Amazon, you go here, you go to the connector page, tell me, okay, not connected. And each one has a different step. Now the resources in Azure, it's pretty much you click a button and say, I give permission. And that's assuming you have the ability to give permission within the tenant. Now for services outside of Azure, there's a copying and pasting of, accounts or keys. It all depends on the solution that you're connecting into. But it's relatively easy to set up the connectors. All right, so let's, because we are going through time quickly, we'll go take a look at playbooks. Now I created one playbook already, but I think I took out everything in it to save time. So actually, let me start that again. To create a playbook, you just say add playbook, and you can fill out the information and put it in whatever resource group you want and turn on log analytics. So to save time, I've done that. This is a playbook I created. Right now, there's no workflow set up. It has some things already here. Hey, post a message in Slack, I can start, but I'm just going to do a blank logic app. And if you go to all, this will be all the connections that exist. Now, because there's so many, you can do type in the filter here. So, we're starting with Azure Sentinel. So I select when a response to an Azure Sentinel alert is triggered. So we're creating the workflow, then we'll have to set up what triggers this workflow. Okay, and it's already connected using credentials. All right, so now let's say, let's say when there is an alert that you want to have it go to Slack, very common, or you want to have it sent to Jira, and I can say, hey, create a new issue in Jira. And again, I'm typing in Gmail. Yes, that's not a Microsoft product, but the idea with the Microsoft Sentinel team is, this is your tool to manage your environments, whether they be in Azure or other public clouds on-prem. So they're working on as many connectors as they can. Now, I'm a good Microsoft team player, and I'm going to use Teams, simply because I also have that demo already set up. So I'm selecting Microsoft Teams, and I'm going to post a message. So I'm selecting this action here, and I select the particular team.
So this
I have
pulls this information from your existing account.
Yes, so if you look down here, I'm logged in as myself. So if you're using, let's say, Slack, you copy in, you go to Slack and you post a secret key. At least I think I remember that's what you do. But each service is a little different. These are Azure services, so I can just use my credential.
Right.
And I'm choosing a team that I have access to. Now I'm choosing a channel. I created one called Sentinel, and I saw someone else do this as their demo, and it just says help. So this will be when a alert of importance comes. I'm going to have it go into that channel in Teams. Now notice when I started typing, the ability to do dynamic content or write expressions came up. So it doesn't have to be static content. I can have it contextual to whatever's going on. Now I can even add a next step. So let's say, hey, I'm not done. I want to have it post in Teams. I'm going to have it posted in Jira. I'm going to have it sent here. I'm going to have some other workflows kicked off. You can keep on building that workflow, but that's enough for now. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And
Now, is there
one
a way
thing
to test these before? Oh.
Yes. Yeah, we'll run a test without actually triggering alert. But one thing that's nice with Logic App is you can always go to the code view and look, hey, what's the code behind what I just did? So that's a nice to have. It's a great learning tool, but it also means there's a whole community of playbooks and runbooks out there that you can utilize, and we'll take a look at that as well. In fact, let's do that right now. So if I click on community here, in the Azure Sentinel resource, it's going to open up to the GitHub, or now it will go to the GitHub community, where there are playbooks that people are adding to for detection and many other aspects.
So it's only going to grow. It's open source. Basically, they just keep throwing things in there as they develop them.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so I'm here. I'm going to pull over Teams and app modernization, Azure Sentinel. I'm in that. Okay, notice no message there. I'm going to go to this runbook, and I'm going to run the trigger. Now, when you do this, you're going to have to click on this because you can have multiple things going on here. So I'm going to do that, and it successfully did the trigger. Notice it comes up in the log. I'm going to pull back, and there's my Teams message. So integration and automation is as easy as that. Now, it all depends on what you're trying to do with the automation. Now, that's just to get the workflow set up. What you would need to do after that is, okay, well, what's going to trigger this particular runbook? And for there, we can go to analytics as one example. And I'm going to go ahead and do a alert rule. And I won't fill the whole thing out because there's some other things, excuse me, that we need to get to. But I give it a name, I give it a description, severity level. I can put in queries, I can do entity mapping, although it's not quite ready yet. I can set up alert triggers. I can set up alert scheduling. You can do it down to 5-minute intervals. Now, what we're looking at though is, hey, if there's a security incident, I need real-time, reporting alerts. So that's where I have real-time automation, and I can just click on the drop-down and select the logic app that I just created. So you can tie certain types of alerts to certain logic apps because maybe different people need to be alerted, different things need to be done, different systems need to be updated. There's a lot you can do with logic apps beyond what I just showed you in that simple example. But that's how easy it is to set up some simple automation.
Very nice. I mean, it doesn't seem very hard, and it does look a lot like Flow. I mean, that's, if anyone has used Flow, this looks almost identical.
All right, and so we'll move on to hunting. So let's say these are pre-built queries that, so the first one is the anomalous Azure Active Directory apps with unusual high ratio of distinct geolocations versus total number of authentications. So they give you a description of each of these pre-built ones. You can create your own queries too. You can type in them. These are also great because you can actually look at the query language, and you'll start realizing this is actually fairly easy to do. I want to create my own that are very specific to some of our needs. I can run all the queries here at once. Let's just run this one, and this is the multi geography locations. I ran it. I have 99 results. I click on view results, and I have this. It's more data I can look at. Let's say I want to do charts. Now it's going to tell me, hey, it's a little too much data, or it could take a while. So I'm going to say no, but I'm going to go into the query here. And instead of 14 days, I'll just say, 2 days. I'm going to run it again, and that's a smaller enough data to look at some quick charts. Now this is separate from the automation that you're going to set up based on things and catch-alls you want to put in place for certain types of alerts. But this is if I'm hunting and I'm looking for specific things. And a number of us in the Azure community have used tools like this to to find if there had been account credential leaks and people have logged in from different geographies, and just a couple weeks ago, it's a typical case. The preventative security layers weren't in place, which, I highly encourage everyone to set up multi-factor authentication and conditional access. Those two preventative services alone can, block over 90% of hack credentials. But client didn't have that. We went in, we assisted them. What happens a lot too, you get someone's traveling, someone is able to hack their credential, and they'll put in like an auto forward in their mailbox. It's very easy to find those with these queries. Plus, that would be automatically alerted to you using some of the existing tools already. But nice tool, easy to use. You can get the high-level bird's eye view. You can relatively easily set up automation, and it gives you also the tool to start going in and looking at a lot of specific details for those who are experienced in that area. And last piece, we talked about the connectors. Now, not everything is available in the connectors. So you can go to workspace settings. Remember, I said Azure Sentinel is built on top of log analytics workspaces. So scrolling here, I clicked on workspace settings. This is the log analytics workspace for Sentinel. And I can go down to the workspace data sources. Now I have these, but I can also click on all Azure data sources. Keep in mind, this is in preview. You'll get this message and you can click here. It'll take you to the new, the interface for this. It's going to load up your resources in the particular subscription that you're in and say, hey, what's sharing data? So if I want this SQL database to share data with Sentinel, I would select it and I'd select add diagnostic setting. I'd give this a name. I'd say send to log analytics, and then I choose the log analytics being used by Sentinel, which is that one. And I choose, okay, what data is going to be, what do I want shared with Sentinel? Now, not all that is necessarily important to Sentinel. Some of that is, good application insights. But that's how you can connect other resources that are in Azure that don't have connectors available for them. Easy to do, you can add them. And the last piece, going back to the connectors, is if a particular connector is not supported, here's a common event format. And that's for Linux and also syslog. So you can add connectors to any solution that uses the common event format or syslog, has a syslog server. So with that,
That's pretty much everything, isn't it, Jason?
It's supposed to be, especially in the security space. It's one or the other.
Right.
All right, so I think I've probably talked quite a bit. I should probably take a pause there real quick.
All right, well, I'm going to take the presenter back, unless you're going to demo something else.
No, I think we went over quite a bit in a short period of time, and it is in public preview, but Sentinel is built on top of a number of other existing tools, and I'll just say we're always happy to assist with training and implementation around any of those services.
And Phil's going to even talk a little bit about our managed security service. Phil, are you still there?
Yeah, sure am. You guys did a wonderful job. Jason, thanks so much for the demo. I know everybody on the webinar shares my excitement about Sentinel, and I know we at Champion, as Microsoft continues to make developments in Sentinel, will continue to broadcast out those developments to everyone on this webinar. As Kevin mentioned, I'm going to take just 2 minutes before we do the wrap up. I just want to talk to you about, change gears a moment. Many of our customers that have got experience with SIEMs, or they might have a new regulation that's driving them to a SIM. Both large and small companies are now asking Champion for a managed SIM. So just as a general rule, I think Gartner says that, if you're going to do it in-house and provide the SIM, whether it's in cloud or on-prem, for every dollar that you spend on the SIM, you're going to need about another 4 times that amount to manage the environment yourself. That can be sort of an overwhelming number. And so quite frankly is a lot of customers really have determined that they really don't have the people resources or the funding to monitor an environment 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And so they're looking for other cost-effective ways, both to augment their staff and also to make sure that their enterprise is monitored and protected around the clock. So let's face it, right now today, the sophistication of all of the cyber criminals now really mandate visibility to all of our assets around the clock. And so that's, as I mentioned, that's a very overwhelming task. So, from a MSSP perspective, they provide the software, the analytics, the people, and the processes for a total solution so that you can maximize your protection. So a lot of the costly aspects of, continuing to set up policies and to make sure that you manage around the clock, those are actually can be taken, and there's a synergistic approach to MSSPs that have large numbers of clients and whatnot. So this is just another option for those customers that are interested in maybe outsourcing their SIM capabilities. We as Champion have a free workshop that we'll be able to offer everyone that is on this webinar. If you're possibly interested in an MSSP, we can educate you on the MSSP options, and then we can also help you with the justification. We really put a very solid, tangible justifications together so that we can make sure that that you completely understand the cost. Now, obviously, we as Champion do have a security practice. For those of you that didn't know that, having a SIM is very fundamental and is really a very important aspect of a whole security architecture. But we as Champion also work with clients on these 22 different components of enterprise security, and we welcome the opportunity to work with your security project also. So thanks very much. I appreciate the couple of minutes here, and back to you, Kevin.
Well, thanks, Phil. And the security practice for us is an integral part of what we do today. I mean, like I said, it's more and more invasive, and if we don't know it, we're in trouble. So our next steps are, we do have a security assessment that's available, and you can talk to anybody here at Champion. We'll be more than happy to set up a call about it. We do have a network discovery, help you guys figure out, where in your network if you're having problems. We can set up a free trial of Sentinel, like Jason was telling you. I think it's something that's pretty easy to set up. You might not get deep in the bowels, but it will give you the opportunity to start working with it and really getting yourself used to running a tool, a SIM, if you've never done it before. I do want to give Jason a last, you got anything else you want to add to the webinar here, Jason?
No, other than the chart I was trying to open up, I found it opened up on my 4th monitor.
Do you want me to give it back to you? You want to show it?
No. The chart was just showing, with machine learning, if it was over a 1-month time period, Microsoft had collected 300 billion security events, and it went through multiple stages of reduction and was able to kind of filter that down into, I always think it was like 13 or 16 actual use cases. And that's alert fatigue is a real thing once you hook up a SIM, and you have to be prepared to start using that. So machine learning is critical, automation and orchestration is critical, and we're here to assist with that. The whole security team is.
Yes, they are. And thank you very much, Jason. Thank you, Phil, for your participation. And thank you all for joining us today. We are having another webinar at the end of August. You'll be notified of that. And that one's near and dear to Jason's heart. It's all around analytics, isn't it, Jason?
Yes, advanced analytics with Power BI embedded. We'll talk about Event Hub and Azure Data Factory and all those fun things.
And yes, he is a nerd, but that's okay. We all are. Well, with that, have a great week, and thanks for joining us here at Champion.
Thanks, everyone.